This is Inside Town Hall, a behind-the-scenes look at city government and the issues affecting you and your family.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Inside Town Hall. I'm your host, Madeline Shields. Coming up in the program, we'll hear about community policing programs and how to keep your neighborhood safe. We'll have those stories and much more when we return.
They're glowing beacons that light our way. Streetlights in the city of Sioux Falls illuminate our travels, brighten our roads, and keep us safe. So what do you do if you see a streetlight out or malfunctioning? The city of Sioux Falls has made it easy to report a problem in your community with the Streetlight Hotline at 373-6979 or log on to siouxfalls.org. Give them as much information as you can, and crews will be out to fix the problem as soon as possible. Thank you for helping make Sioux Falls a better place to live.
You may see more police patrolling your neighborhood, and here to talk about that, our City Councilor Marshall Selberg, and his guest is Sioux Falls Police Chief Matt Burns. Thanks for joining us. Let's talk about all the different programs that are going on with citizens and the police department.
Well, thank you, Madeline. I was just going to say there's, obviously we're getting into some subjects today with the police department. I'm so glad that we have Chief Burns here taking some time to join us. Obviously, there's no more important issue to our citizens in the city than public safety right now. And obviously, there's no more important department to our city than the police department. So today we thought we'd take our time and again, thank you to the chief for sharing his time and his insight for both what's going on with the department and some of these initiatives that are going on in Sioux Falls. I thought we'd touch base on those today.
Okay, and let's talk a little bit about crime. Everyone always wants to know, what is crime up? Is crime down? Is crime going to affect my neighborhood? Let's talk a little bit about the broad aspects of crime in Sioux Falls.
Well, I always talk about, it's always an exciting topic how fast this city is growing, and it's growing leaps and bounds, and there's all kinds of great stories about our city, but it's also a two-edged sword in that regard, because naturally as our population grows, we're going to see a rise in the crime rate. That only seems natural. I think one of the things that I've seen recently with statistics that people can take heart in is that I did notice that when you looked at stats from 2016 going in through last year to 2017, I think 13 out of 15 different areas, everything from we had aggravated assault, simple assault, runaways, robberies, burglaries, stolen vehicles, larceny, vandalism, forgery, embezzlement, these type things. In all these different categories, numbers last year were down from the year before. Mm-hmm. Now maybe, Chief, you could talk to a little bit about, as far as the trends go for this year, how they're holding up.
Sure. Yeah, as you noted, coming out of 2016, if we would have continued on the trend of 2016, I think it would have been alarming to most of us across the city. We saw some highs, not only in our call volume, but in the crimes reported to us. We did see some increases that were kind of troubling. So as we went into 2017, we did some realignment with some of our patrol shifts and some of how we have projected some of our resources and the timing of those. And we think that was helpful in some regards as to kind of suppressing some crime and things like this. And we eventually did see, as you noted, 13 out of those 15 categories go down. So obviously that's something we track very closely. We've tracked that for years on end and in our annual report. So going into 2018, what we've seen is those trends have been largely very flat. At the 6-month mark, we measured it, and we just measured it again at the end of the third quarter. And we see there's a few things are up from 2017 going into the fourth quarter now, but yet some things were down. So what we're seeing is that's pretty flat, because we know, as the counselor noted, that we are probably added 3 to 4 to maybe even 5,000 people all in at the end of this year, just like we have for the past couple years. And so if you have kind of a flat rate, but your population increases, you actually will see that rate continue to go down as we did last year. We hope that's going to be the case. We've got to realize the data for the fourth quarter yet, but we're optimistic that at a minimum it's going to be remain largely flat.
As part of the City Council, that must be very welcoming news to know that as our population grows, and you would expect in other cities that the crime rate grows as well, but that it's flat and it's not growing.
Yeah, it keeps it in perspective. Again, with this tremendous growth that we've been seeing year after year, that's kind of why I brought up those stats. I remember last year when we saw those, or months ago when the end of 2017 came out, to see that all these areas are going down. And now they're staying flat. And to put it in perspective, how you should measure that with our population, I think people we'll take heart to that for sure.
Let's talk about how you accomplished that. Did you move people around? If you drive around Sioux Falls, it's evident. You can see different neighborhoods where there are more patrol cars. Is that how you combat those crime numbers?
Yeah, many of the crimes that we're talking about, such as your simple assaults, your burglaries, some of your robberies, your strong arm robberies and things like that, larcenies and vandalisms are kind of in that street crime category. So what we've done, we take a very granular view of the crime statistics and track those crimes by different beats, which is just a geographic designation within the city. But we look at those and see if things are trending up and trending down on a monthly basis. And by doing that, then you can add resources to those areas. We can even track it by time of day when we're seeing those reports from the time frame. We have a crime analyst that does a lot of good work in that regard. And so when you're able to track it by time of day and even by certainly the shift that it happens and where it happens, you're able to shift resources and more officers to patrol in those areas. And the proactive look and the feel, the citizens, they see more officers in their neighborhood, and it gives them a perception of safety, but also it has the desirable effect of actually suppressing crime.
Let's talk about some of the programs that you have to get citizens more aware of what the police are doing and why that is so important. And you have several programs going on.
I know the one that I think it's, it came up recently was Coffee with a Cop, isn't it? And I like the concept about that one, if you wanted to talk about that first.
Yeah, the whole Coffee with a Cop program is a nationwide program, and it kind of came on our radar a few years ago. And it's a pretty simple concept. It's just you're putting officers out there at a coffee shop or at a restaurant at a date and time that we advertise, and many of them with our Community Resource Officer program, which I'll discuss in a minute. But it's just about having conversations with citizens and tell me about you and getting to know each other and just seeing each other not necessarily as officer and citizen, but just as people who live in Sioux Falls, who want to live here and work here and raise children and pursue recreation and just enjoy all the things that we should in our wonderful city.
And no radios, no cell phones, nothing that's going to break up the conversation like you normally see in conversations. It's just
an earnest conversation about what's your concerns, what are you seeing, and frankly, what are we doing right? It's that kind of feedback that we desire, that we want, and we get in these sessions that helps us do our job better.
Are they the same people that you see over and over again, or are you getting new people to come in to that situation?
We do have regulars that have really enjoyed the program and want to come back and do that again, but we also are regularly seeing new folks that hear about it, they see the success. We put that on social media and through the city's communication networks, and the word's getting out, and so we are seeing new people come in.
Let's talk about the Community Resource Officer program. What exactly is that? You call it CRO.
Yeah, this is a program that I wanted to start over a year ago, and so we started with one officer, and now that's grown into 2 officers. We did have a full-time crime prevention officer that we kind of molded into a CRO too, as well. And so these officers, their mandate, if you will, their mission and role is to really get out there and talk to people, maybe in these communities, say some of the ethnic communities or minority communities that we really don't have historically a lot of inroads to, and just build relationships. That's their job, is to be, again, out there at the street level, going to the group meetings, meeting with folks on their terms, maybe in their space, and certainly not at the police department. So it's more of a comfortable environment. Now they're meeting with not only groups, but businesses, so they still maintain that traditional crime prevention officer training and model, but it's much more than that. And in fact, I've been discussing with the mayor and planning and rolled this out to the department recently that in 2018, I want to use one of these FTEs that the administration and the council has provided to us and expand the CRO program, but give these officers some additional training for mental health and addiction, because those are such prevalent issues in our society that I want our department and the city to have an increased profile in this regard, so we can do some follow-up with some of the folks that we meet and encounter on some calls, and maybe they have a little mental health problem that we need to just engage a little bit more and maybe work with some of the social services and mental health groups so we can just get a better handle on it. And when you do that and you make that connection, you're actually probably reducing your calls in the future. because if you can build a rapport with some individuals who may be struggling at a certain time in their life with a mental health issue or an addiction, and then maybe that relationship actually makes that next contact better, or it doesn't go in an unfortunate direction, which we have to then get additional police resources. So I think you're kind of paying it forward in a sense.
Do you have regular people that are out, and it might be like what we used to think is walking the beat, or a beat cop? Are they at the same places all the time, and so that's how people get to know them?
Yeah, we do downtown beats. That's one of the most popular ones, just so our officers can be seen by visitors and residents of our city, and we have more people living downtown than we've ever had before. So that's important in building relationships with businesses. So if there are any concerns, then they have an immediate avenue to relay those to. But we also walk beats in like the Pettigrew neighborhood. We also in the Cathedral district. So some of those areas of town that are more in the core part of the city, that's been an initiative that we've really tried to promote, is just to get officers maybe out of the cars a little bit more, and just to be seen by those residents, so they can strike up conversations and hear about issues that otherwise might not happen. It takes a little bit more to call an officer and get that response, where it's much easier just to say, hey, can I talk to you a second, if they're walking by.
Do you think people are more comfortable once they've talked to an officer a couple of times or 2 or 3 times, that they will seek them out then to say, hey, I'm having an issue with this guy or whatever, and come and help me out? Or do they steer clear of the officers?
I think there's no question that once you have made yourself available, and once you've seen that you're just, hey, I'm just a regular person, and I'm approachable, I'm easy to have a conversation with, they see you kind of a less so as an officer, and more of somebody that they can reach out to, somebody as a point of contact, where they know they're going to get help. So it's a win-win.
Get out there and break the ice, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
As the city grows, do you see more and more of these types of programs happening in other parts of the city as well?
I would certainly think so. It's off to a good start.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think even a number of these programs we're going to talk about today are relatively new, so I would think there's nowhere to go but up with those. So,
Mm-hmm.
and so far the response has been terrific.
Yeah.
One thing I also want to touch on is we have a much more diversity in the city of Sioux Falls. And I know here you have the new immigrant citizen education. What is it that officers can do, and even as neighbors and as citizens of Sioux Falls, that when we have new immigrant families, they don't always know how things are here? How can we reach out as citizens, and what can we do to work with the police department to make those transitions go more smoothly?
Well, the initiative that we've undertaken, and we've actually done this for several years, is when we have a refugee family or a new immigrant move in our community, that we actually have set aside, and we get some time, say with Lutheran Social Services or another agency like that, and they give us some time to sit down and to kind of give an overall briefing of and an understanding of this. Say, these are some of the laws that we have in South Dakota and in Sioux Falls that you need to be aware of. Because what we found over the course of time is that maybe an immigrant or refugee family, they don't have the same sort of certainly law structure or specific laws, maybe in regards to a domestic situation or the discipline of children. It's maybe entirely different, and often it is from the culture that they came from. So in order to create an environment where you're wanting these folks to be successful, you're wanting them to know the laws here, then it takes education. And so we've done this for some time, but I would also encourage, if you do have a new neighbor or a friend or somebody that you know is new to our city, hey, reach out and try to be helpful, because it's hard for folks to understand and follow a law that they don't know exists, or it may exist in a different form than where they're from.
You're trying to help, again, build a bridge, showing them you're here to help. And,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Are people receptive to that? Are you seeing that people are, as they come here, they have no preconceived notions of who the police are, and that they're willing to work with you?
Well, some are more willing than others. What we've understand is that many of the countries that a refugee family or immigrant family may come from, that they see a government, and certainly the police in some of these countries, as an oppressor, that they're not a professional law enforcement organization that works with the community, and so they have a different view of police, and so they can be very scared, frankly, about any encounter with the police, and not report a crime, because in the country that they come from, maybe that's just an invitation to be a victim in some other regard, and that's a sad state of affairs. But so sometimes there can be some barriers like that we kind of have to get through before we can make that connection. But that's what this program is about making that connection, notwithstanding the barriers that may be in place.
And that's where you can call on citizens of Sioux Falls to say, hey, you can strike up these conversations and maybe help educate their neighbors or new immigrants that they may move into their neighborhood.
Absolutely. We need and want that all these families that move into Sioux Falls, whether they're even from other parts of our own country or immigrants or refugees, to be successful. We need them in our workforce. We need them in our schools to keep the expansion and growth of our city. And so we want and need them to be successful. So education is the key to help that happen.
Yeah, our population obviously is getting more and more diverse constantly by leaps and bounds. So that program's really, really important.
Okay. And then let's talk about the Citizens Police Academy. That is a program, and it's been going on for a while, I think.
Yeah, we've had that for several years. It's very popular. We have a list of applicants that we put that on once a year, and what we do is we try to bring citizens in, and we typically hold those in the evening when folks are outside of their normal work hours and can come in and join us, and it's held over a several week period, and just give them a sense of what we do. So we show them the patrol officer function, but all the other various parts of our department, be it the detective division, the SWAT team, the K-9 team. We have folks from our SROs come in, school resource officers, so just the various parts of our department, just to kind of show them what we do and who we are, and to demystify the job of a police officer, because you may see an officer drive by on a squad car or motorcycle and just kind of, oh, there's an officer, but we want them to see us as individuals and as the same folks that they are, who live in the city and want to enjoy the same things, and raise the public safety bar for everybody who lives in our community.
Yeah, and I mean, it's another program where you're giving them a behind-the-scenes look. This is what it's like, not a preconceived notion. I got a kick out of some people where I had a couple of citizens come up and they thought this was kind of a tryout, like an NFL team too, where do we get to come out and try out for the police department? How does that work? No, not necessarily, but you should go take part.
Yeah, it's been wildly successful, and we will absolutely continue to do that because we really see the benefit of that. And then these folks get to go out and tell others in their communities and their families, hey, this is not what you thought it was. If you had a certain notion of the police department, their work, and the folks that work there, you should really try out the Citizens Police Academy, because it'll really open your eyes.
So who takes this class or this course? Is it older people or younger people? All ages?
All ages. Okay. The opening night of the Citizens Police Academy, I go and I'm one of the people. I'm a bit part player in that, but I go to welcome them and I say, hey, thank you for taking the time to be interested in us. Thank you for investing your time, because all of our time is valuable. But thanks for being here. And I see those faces, and there's older folks, retired folks, all the way down to folks that are in just graduated high school. And so you really see a good mix, which it really pleases me, because then we're reaching a wide range of folks.
Okay. Well, at this point, we're going to take a break, and then when we come back, we have lots more to talk about, crime-free housing, as well as maybe some body cameras. So we're going to hear all about that when we return.
Hi, I'm Dr. Abanese from Falls Community Health, here to talk to you today about child passenger safety. Infants and toddlers should ride in a rear-facing car seat for as long as possible, until they reach the height and weight recommendations allowed by their seat. After that, they should ride in a forward-facing car seat with a harness for as long as possible, until again they reach the height and weight limitations. When children exceed these limits, they should use a booster seat until they reach at least 4 feet 9 inches in height, usually around 8 to 12 years of age. For more information, or to have your car seat checked, please contact your local physician or Sioux Falls Fire Rescue.
Well, welcome back to Inside Town Hall, where we are visiting with City Councilor Marshall Selberg and his guest, Police Chief Matt Burns. Thanks for joining us. Let's talk about the presidential visit. We had President Trump here. How did that affect Sioux Falls, the police department? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, that's one I thought we should touch on, because that was particularly close to my heart. I always find it really intriguing when we have national figures come to town, especially when it's the president. So It's kind of, and we've read a little bit about that, obviously, some of the security detail on that, but I thought it'd be nice for you to share some of that visit.
Well, first of all, what an honor to have a sitting president visit your city. But that does come with a lot of work that has to be done. The Secret Service comes in as well as representatives from the White House, and so our team worked very, very closely with them in making sure that we had a safe and secure event. So without talking about all the officers and the numbers that were involved, suffice it to say that we had responsibilities to secure areas not only of the airport, the entire route, as well as the venue where the meeting took place, as well as areas outside the venue. So we had a considerable number of officers and resources, as well as equipment from the Public Works, just to help secure different areas. And so it was a big event. It had a heavy city involvement, but that's what one does when a sitting president comes to visit your town.
How much lead time do you get on an event like this?
Yeah, we had about, all in, about 3 weeks.
Okay.
And so things spun up pretty fast with the planning and making sure we had all the resources in place and working with the Secret Service team, who, by the way, are consummate professionals and very organized, and they know their business very well because they're dancing and dotting all over the country and even internationally all the time to support the presidential movements. And so working with them is actually a treat, and it's something that you don't forget.
What law enforcement locally works with a visit like that? Is it just police or sheriff's department as well?
Yeah, we had full support from the Minnehaha County Sheriff's Department and the South Dakota Highway Patrol. The Division of Criminal Investigation also had agents that were helping us in that security detail. The Minnehaha County Sheriff's Reserves were police reserves rather, were part of that, and so we had a lot of law enforcement resources, brought to bear on that because that's what it requires.
It's all hands on deck for that, I'd imagine. Nobody gets the day off.
Absolutely.
I thought one of the nice perks to that, if there's a perk to your job, I mean, most of the time it's work, but I thought it was nice that you said that the president always, whatever town he's in, made a point to meet the police chief and the fire chief and have a photo and just really get to know people or say hello when he gets to town. I believe that was something he did when he came here. I thought that was...
Yes, I was able to meet the president, and that was a nice moment.
Right.
Okay. Well, and the 2019 budget was approved, and of course we have to talk about the budget a little bit to get into what some of the things you would like to see happen in the future. So can we talk about what was in the budget for the police department?
Well, they have 5 new officers who were approved, 1 new sergeant, and then I believe the body cameras were a part of that program. So I guess I'll just lay it out and let you.
Yes. Historically, we've been very well supported by the administration and the council. They've always seen public safety as something that's fundamental to the growth and safety of our city. And so those 6 FTEs, again, 5 officers and a sergeant, was the primary budget ask this time. But we also had an increase in training funds. We also had some mobile field force or kind of crowd control equipment that was important to kind of raise our game, if you will, into being prepared for an event like that in our city. But just the support that the council has always offered has been incredibly important and appreciated.
Let's talk a little bit about the body cameras pilot program. Do we have body cameras right now?
Yes, we do. So as a part of in our OSEP budget or other capital expenditures plan, we had some plan in there to replace all the cameras in the police cars. So every police car that has a camera system in it, they were life cycled out and due to replace. So we were doing some research over the course of about a year on what is the best body camera system for us, because it's clearly a direction we needed and wanted to go, but we wanted to do it right. We just didn't want to jump in and get a system and then maybe have some regrets if it wasn't functional and worked well with some other systems we had. So we did that, and we came up with a system that we're testing. We actually have 30 and have purchased 30 body cameras now. Because it was my priority to put a body camera on some of our officers who don't have a camera system currently, and those are our motorcycle officers, our officers who ride bicycles during the summer, and we do that a lot, as well as some of our foot patrol officers, and something you might not expect, but my school resource officers, I have them wearing body cameras. They're inside the schools all day and they have a camera system in their car, but that's a fixed thing that's outside. So if they need to turn that on to capture their audio because of something they need to, a situation they're addressing, there's physical limitations on that technology, and so it might not even turn it on depending on where they're at in the building. So it was important for me to give them a platform in the form of a body camera to capture and record those instances that they may need to.
Is it running all the time, or is it they have the ability to turn it on or turn it off if they stop?
Yes, they turn it on and turn it off. That is covered by policy, and so the situations with which that we've determined that it's appropriate for them to turn and necessary for them to turn it on to just capture an interaction, whether it's an enforcement action or a threat to their safety or something like that, just a compelling event. That's all guided by policy.
When you see a camera, what is it? Just a little something here or there? I mean, people.
Yeah, it actually looks. It's just a little black square, and it's about the size of a folded cell phone, one of the old flip phones, and it's just either could be on their lapel or just on the front of their uniform. But it's pretty nondescript, but it's clear that that's what it is if a person notices it.
And we just have a couple of minutes, but let's talk about something that we heard of when we were young kids about the neighborhood watch. The neighborhood watch is still in effect in Sioux Falls, and how do you encourage people to take part in that?
I think that we've been promoting that, nonstop for years. I mean, it's an idea to get behind and work with your neighbors to look out for each other, keep an eye out, build a sense of community, kind of a neighborhood by neighborhood. But I think this is probably, of all the initiatives we're talking about, this is probably the one that's been around the longest, and there's probably a reason why, right?
Yeah, it's a very successful program, and it really builds relationships among neighbors, and a new neighbor moves into a community. We love it when the current neighborhood watch group brings them in and says, hey, this is what we're about and what we do, and we're here to make sure that everybody in our neighborhood kind of raises the bar in their awareness and their ability to see things and to report things to law enforcement if necessary. So big supporter neighborhood watch program, and hope that it continues to grow, and I expect it will.
As the city grows, what's your advice for residents who might be moving into town or who've lived in a neighborhood for a long time? Do you have any advice on welcoming new people or how to get along with your neighbors?
Absolutely. Since I've lived in Sioux Falls, and that's been since 1996, and worked here, we are a very welcoming city, I believe, and I would just encourage folks to continue to do that, because it's up to every one of us in our neighborhoods, in our communities, to kind of be the eyes and ears out there. We have going on 269 sworn officers, but with that we still can't be everywhere all the time and see everything, and so we really need that support from those the good citizens in their neighborhoods, just to keep an eye out. And part of that is just being a good neighbor and looking out for one another.
Yeah, get out there and get to meet your neighbors, as we just talked about. Get to know your police officers, break through some of these walls, build these bridges. Again, that's a lot of what we're talking about today. The more people know, the more safe I think they'll feel and comfortable.
Sure. Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us for Inside Town Hall. We'll be back in just a moment.
My hero is my neighbor because she rakes the lawn for me when I can't.
She's always there whenever anyone needs a helping hand.
My teacher is my hero because she always makes time for everyone.
Well, welcome back to Inside Town Hall, where we are visiting with City Councilor Marshall Selberg. Talk about the superhero program.
Thanks. Yeah, quick plug to that again. It's our citizen recognition program. What we do is we encourage people to go to siouxfalls.org, and if you have anybody that's doing anything out in the community, whatever it might be, it's your community group, it's your church, they're volunteering, they're going the extra mile, let us know about it. We want to recognize them at a city council meeting, on the city television channel. We want to really promote people that are out and about and going the extra mile. So siouxfalls.org, click superhero, and please keep that in mind.
Okay, and if anybody has any questions or comments or wants to get a hold of you, how do they get a hold of you?
siouxfalls.org. I just keep throwing that out there. If you go there, you can find anything you need to know about the city, the program, our contact information, anybody else on the city council.
All right, well, great. Well, that's our time. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next month.